You are listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show, the only news and podcast in English about AS Cittadella. Hello everyone, welcome back to the CittaCalcioUsa show, episode number 163, coming to you on Thursday, March 13th. Disaster at the Tombolato. What in the world was that as Cittadella lose 5-1 against Sudtirol this past Sunday? It was a game unexpectedly in that way, as the Granata suffer for only the second time in their history, giving up more than 5 goals at home. It was a really damaging defeat, and it's another record and unwanted defeat in this game, as 9 games remain in the Serie B season, and it gets no easier for Cittadella as they're getting ready to play the league leaders Sassuolo in the Tombolato on Saturday before the international break. So lots to talk about, lots to get into. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Mamma mia. It's still hard for me to put into words about that game. I mean, gosh, that was just unbelievable. I mean, when you give up 5 goals in 18 minutes, I mean, that is, I'm really kind of lost for words. And I mean, I was lost for words for a while while I was watching, and I still kind of am on Thursday, and the game was played Sunday, and we're already closer to the next game than we were to the last one. But wow, 5-1 defeat at home against Sudtirol. This game was 0-0 going into the 57th minute. Yes, it was 0-0. Cittadella had some half chances. Sudtirol didn't even have a shot on target, yet they netted 5 in 18 minutes to put themselves 5-0 up. It really should have finished 5-0, but Jacobo de Sogus, who scored his first Serie B goal of his career and first Cittadella goal, getting on the score sheet in the very last minute of stoppage time on a breakaway. And if not for that goal by de Sogus, it would have statistically been the worst, heaviest defeat in Cittadella's home history, as they have never suffered a defeat by more than 5 goals in their history. Well, they avoided it this time, but they were seconds away, I'd say, from it. And you have to say this is up there on one of the worst, if not the most, worst defeat in Cittadella's history. And that is now, that's another loss. It's really, I'd say, I mean, listen, I'm probably going to be very critical in this, but it's really unacceptable to lose in that manner against a relegation zone. And I said maybe worst defeat of the season because, there has been definitely a lot of bad losses this season. I mean, automatically thinking of the 6-1 loss against Sassuolo in October, then in December, 5-0 in La Spezia, the 3-0 defeat against Cagliari. I'm thinking of the Bari game where they were 3-0 down once again at halftime. There's a lot of defeats, and just even about 2 weeks ago against Modena at home, 2-0 loss. I think you can make a case that this was the worst of them, because you could say, all right, there's really no shame into losing against the top teams like Spezia or Sassuolo, who are really fighting for Serie A. Sassuolo really has a team that's built for Serie A. It really is a Serie A team in Serie B. And Spezia, third place, they're really chasing the promotion pack. They're one of the best teams this season. So you can make a case, well, there's really no shame into losing that. Yes, obviously, Cittadella had a lot of stuff to work on, but losing by 5 goals in those games, it really isn't that much to look at. But once you lose by 4 goals, but you give up 5 at home against a relegation rival, going into the match, you knew that you could put yourself really in a good spot going into the final stretch of games by defeating Sudtirol, even getting a point. We talked to David Farini before the game on our show, and he said really it's all about avoiding defeat for Cittadella. If they could at least get a draw in this and keep Sudtirol at bay, I think you would see that as a win. But oh boy, did it not go in their favor as they lose once again 5-1, like I said. And, you could say worst defeat, and I have to say so. You're playing at home against a relegation rival, against a Sudtirol team who, yes, has been improved by a lot, but if you remember, Cittadella beat Sudtirol in the reverse fixture on Boxing Day under the same coach, under Castori, who has been really performing well with them ever since taking over. Cittadella was one of the only teams to defeat Castori alongside Sassuolo and Cremonese at the helm of Sudtirol. But wow, this was really unexpected, and I mean, this is just I'd say a worrying thing for Cittadella, because it's becoming too common this season where you start off the game decently, you limit the opposition to chances and you keep a solid in the back, and then one goal goes in and then it just all melts like ice cream in the sun. And that's really what happened. You saw that in Bari, you saw that in Carrara against Carrarese, you saw that in, I'm thinking Sassuolo, you saw that in La Spezia, and now you're seeing it here. 5 goals in 18 minutes, 3 goals in 3 minutes. Yeah, I mean, in the 58th minute, Barreca scores Sudtirol's first shot on target, literally the next play after the kickoff. It goes down as a Emanuele Mattino own goal, but it was really Mercai who sent that weird shot/cross in going over Castretti's head, and then Casaraghi 2 minutes later heads it in to make it 3-0. I mean, you looked at the players, you looked at Dal Canto, the camera pointed to him, you just see that they're really in shock by this. And I think, we've seen Cittadella collapse this year, but this was by far the fastest they've ever collapsed. I mean, 3 goals in 3 minutes, basically the game was done and dusted. But they didn't stop there, because Sudtirol scored 2 more after that in the 71st and 76th minute. I mean, it was bad, and I don't think I've ever seen quite a game like that, just given how quickly things unfolded. I mean, you really you hear those jokes by saying, like, I went to the bathroom and I came out and it was they scored 4 goals or 3 goals, and that's a realistic possibility. I mean, I was tweeting the game, but say I went to the bathroom real quickly, that I could have really came back to the computer screen and it would have been 3-0. I mean, it was quite remarkable. But I think this game also kind of summarizes this season mentally wise for Cittadella, just as it could crumble so fast, and just how I'd say maybe not, I don't think unpredictable, but just how, yeah, maybe that is the word, unpredictable, because you've seen just in last game Cittadella getting a result in Castellammare di Stabia, they got a result in Pisa, they got a result in Cesena, and they've shown that they could play really well against top teams like Palermo, like like Pisa. And yet sometimes when things don't go right, it just goes all to worse. And like I've mentioned many times already in this episode, the losses this season in Bari, Carrarese, and Sassuolo, all those losses, it kind of just summarizes just the mental state of this team is just very fragile. And this game kind of summarizes it good. It was a good first half from Cittadella. I thought Casolari was playing great in the midfield. They were without Salvi and Pandolfi, so it was going to be hard to see where the goals were really going to come from. But I think Cittadella managed the first half well. They, once again, did not allow Sudtirol any shots on target and really kept them at bay. And all of a sudden, it just imploded. I mean, 5 goals, like I said, in 18 minutes, just quite crazy. And I was talking to other Cittadella supporters on this, and maybe, I don't know if there was a lack of leadership on the field, because like I just said, Alessandro Salvi out with yellow card suspension. He should be back for this upcoming game against Sassuolo, but really, maybe there was a lack of leadership, and we've been talking about this for many times for Cittadella ever since Manuel Iori departed and left the team in 2021, ever since Perticone left in 2023. There just seems to be a lack of a leader in the locker room. However, we don't know that as fans, as journalists. We don't know what's going on in the locker room and who really is the captain of that of the team inside. I mean, we've heard that Luca Maniero is that type of guy, but maybe you're missing something on the field when those things are getting rough, when you're conceding 3 in 3 minutes. Maybe you need a person like Perticone or Salvi who just gets their leadership and experience in the back to kind of don't allow things to get under control. I don't know. Maybe that was just a possibility that could have happened. But when you look at the team, you still got players like Nicola Pavan, Alessio Vita, Alan Castrati, players that have been at the club for long enough and are experienced enough to probably handle that command, and they were on the field when that happened, and apparently it did not pan out the way it did. So I don't know how to fix this, because it just seems once that first goal goes in, it could just quickly windle and just get way out of control. And this really is seen in Cittadella's when losing positions. They have when they've been behind 16 times so far in the league. They've won 1, they've drawn twice, and they've lost 13 from those positions. Only 5 points gained from losing positions, and like I said, that one win came against Sudtirol. That one of those draws came in the 1-1 draw against Pisa back in August, but obviously that got overturned, so it's not going to appear officially on the records charts. But for this podcast's sake, I'm just going to count it as a draw. So if you look on Transfer Market, for example, you'll probably see that Cittadella's only gained 4 points from losing positions. But here I'm going to count 5. Just, we've talked many times how probably that late substitution by Jacopo de Sogas probably didn't make as big of an impact as Pisa might have insisted. But yeah, there's not much else to say about this game, because I'm still quite shocked of what we've seen. And another thing I kind of want to say is that I was also talking to Cittadella fans, and the journalists there is you just a scary thought is you've seen these losses in the past for other teams in other leagues, or just in this league. Just you don't really recover from a defeat like this, and we'll have to see in the next upcoming weeks how big of an impact this loss has on Cittadella. It could be very little. They could win the next game against Sassuolo and be back, or come back after the international break, refreshed, recharged, and getting results to keep them alive. Or we could see them really spiral out of control, because like we've said, they have some tricky games coming up, and really important games, especially at the Tombolato, a place where they have not been great this season. Like I said, there's 9 games remaining. They have Sassuolo this upcoming Saturday. Then after the international break, they go away to Cremona to play Cremonese. Then it's at home against Carrarese. That's a direct clash, a relegation 6-pointer. Another potential relegation 6-pointer is away against Sampdoria on the April 12th. Then home against Salernitana, relegation 6-pointer. Away, Reggiana, another relegation 6-pointer. Home against Brescia, another relegation 6-pointer. Away against Frosinone, the last away match of the season. Yes, another 6-pointer. And then a home against Bari, which shouldn't be a relegation 6-pointer, because Bari are currently they're actually just outside the relegation playoff spots, but you expect them to be standing there towards the end of the season. But, like I've said, Dal Canto said this after the press conference, that the route to safety is going to run through the house, I say, but it's going to run through the Tombolato. There's just too many important direct clashes that really could make a difference in these next upcoming weeks played at the Tombolato to not have an impact on Cittadella's season. So we're going to have to see. We're going to have to see how they respond to this really bad defeat on Sunday night. The 5-1 loss against the Sudtirol. Cittadella will be looking to bounce back right after this that loss, and in the upcoming, well, you'll probably, by the time you're listening to this, it's probably going to be tomorrow, but for when I'm recording, it's 2 days from now. Let's get into the match on Saturday, March 15th, 3 p.m. Central European Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, remember, of daylight saving, so it's not at 9 a.m., it's at 10 a.m. at the Stadio Pier Cesare Tombolato against the league leader Sassuolo. There's really, once again, not much else to say about this team. Sassuolo has been head and shoulders the best team in Serie B this season. Like I said earlier in the podcast, really a Serie A team built in Serie B, as they have many attacking powerhouses that could easily be on a Serie A team, but are with Sassuolo, as they are currently 9 points clear of second place Pisa, really trying to solidify that first place, which I think they will, regardless of what happens on Saturday. But yes, 20 wins, 6 losses, 20 wins, 6 draws, and 3 losses. The best attacking team in the league with 60 goals scored, and they have 26 goals conceded. They have the best goal difference, plus 34, and they're the best away team statistically. 14 games played on the road, 2 losses, 4 draws, and 8 wins, coming 28 points on their travels. This is the best away team versus the worst home team in the league. Like I said, Cittadella, the worst statistical home team in the league, with only 11 points gained at the Tombolato this season from 14 games, 2 wins, 5 draws, and 7 losses, coming only 10 goals scored at home this season for Cittadella. Maybe, just maybe, there's a little thing for a possible, an improbable but not impossible upset for this game. The reason I say that is because Sassuolo will be without leading goal scorer Armand Loriente, 13 goals this season, 5 assists, and possibly, I'm not saying officially because we have to see the match sheets, but he's been out for a while, is Christian Thorsvedt, the midfielder, the Norwegian midfielder, who's been very good for Sassuolo in the league this season, but he's been out for a while. Loriente, yellow card suspension, so he will not make the trip. It's 13 goals he has for Sassuolo this season, but you still have to worry about Luca Moro. You still got to worry about Berardi, who has 12 assists. He's really the playmaker, Berardi. Baloca is there, and then, I'm just looking right now at some of their other players right now. Pierini, where we could see him, Mulatieri. So this is definitely a team that's going to get promoted. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And, they're going to try to once again get another win going into the international break. I will say that Pandolfi and Salvi should be back from yellow card suspension. And another thing I want to say is, when I was doing research for this podcast, and what really struck me is Fabio Grosso, the Sassuolo coach, has never beaten Cittadella at the Tombolato. Yes, you heard me right. In 4 games he has coached, both as a manager with Frosinone and Bari. He has never came out victorious at the Tombolato. 2 draws and 2 losses. The most recent coming in 2022 with Frosinone, where Giacomo Beretta scored in the final minutes to give Cittadella the victory. Let me see. There was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, and one of those draws was the 2-2 draw against Bari in 2018. If you recall, that game ended in a tie, but Cittadella advanced to the semifinals based on the league standings, the tie breaker rules. So really, if you want to count that as a loss, you could say 3 losses in 1 draw for Grosso on the sidelines of the Tombolato. But nonetheless, this is going to be a very, very difficult very difficult place and very difficult team to play against for Cittadella. And this is really, I'd say, one of Serie B's most mismatched games of definitely of this season and possibly of the last few decades. And I actually wrote an article for Destination Calcio, the publication where David Farini is working at right now, and he offered me to write a story for this, and I pitched him an idea last week and I got to writing. So go check it out on destinationcalcio.com. You could also find it on our Twitter and Instagram. We have a link to that. But basically what I wrote for Destination Calcio was that Sassuolo is the richest club in Serie B, basically. They have all the money, they have all the superstars, they have the facilities, and they really have the best players. And when you compare it to Cittadella, who doesn't spend a lot of money or really no money at all, and you compare it to Sassuolo's spending and their market value, it is just incredible when you look at the size, the financial gap between the two teams. It really is Serie B's version of David versus Goliath. It really is the biggest mismatch of this season in terms of financial gaps and disparities. Really, the only similarities between these two teams is the fact that they represent very small towns. Sassuolo representing a town of 40,000 inhabitants and Cittadella 20,000. And it really is quite remarkable that these teams haven't been around for as long as other teams in Italian football, yet they continue to be giant killers and continue to defeat really huge clubs in really important places, important stadiums. So there's definitely a little bit of similarities, but other than that, I mean, it is really incredible when you look at the financial gap and how much different these two teams are. But go give it a read on destinationcalcio.com. We have seen responses like this for Cittadella after a heavy defeat. If you recall, after they got thrashed 6-1 by Sassuolo before the October international break, Guarini got fired. They had a home game against Cosenza and really should have won that game. It was a VAR call in the final minutes, Nicola Pavan scoring, canceling, but nonetheless, Cittadella had a lot of opportunities in that game. Really should have won. That was a good response. After La Spezia, after the game, the 5-0 loss to Spezia, Cittadella played at home against Cremonese. They got a 0-0 draw, a draw that, not much happened in that game. Possibly, I don't know, and maybe a win was needed for that, but they played well and they got a 0-0 draw, and that led the way to finishing 2024 with 3 straight wins, propelling Cittadella out of the relegation zone. So we have seen this team play well right after these huge losses, and it's going to be interesting to see because this is by far their hardest opponent yet to play and to get a response. I will say nobody thought that the Granata were going to win in Pisa against a Pisa team who had not lost at home all season. They won that 1-0. Nobody said they were going to beat Palermo in Palermo once again. Once again, in the 90th minute, Luca Pandolfi scoring and getting that victory. So, I say, why not? Why not? Can they not win this? And I know it's very difficult when you see the gulf in quality, the gap in quality, and the differences between Sassuolo and Cittadella, especially at this stage of the season. But I say, why not? This is Serie B after all, and this is a league of just, it's out of imagination. And so, this could easily be a 3-0 win for Sassuolo. But on the other hand, weird things can happen in this league. And so you can't rule out Cittadella playing until the end and really making it difficult for the Nero Verdi in this match. So I don't know if they're going to do it, but I do expect a much needed response. And I think that's what the Granata need to aim for. That's what Dal Canto really needs to aim for. It's unlikely that they'll get a result in this match, but if they show the fans that they will fight until the end with what will be then 8 games remaining going into the international break, they got to give the fans just some sense of hope and some sense of willingness that they will fight and they're not going to go down easy or easily, and they're going to make it very difficult towards the end. And I think that's just what Cittadella needs. I think the performance and response is needed more than anything else besides the result. And I know that kind of sounds a little, I don't know, corny maybe towards this part of the season where, points are really all that matters. However, when you're playing against a team that's the best by far on the road, at home, and just in general, they have a 9-point gap and they're breaking records left and right. You got to take in consideration that, this is a game there. It's unlikely that Cittadella will get a result, but it's not improbable. And Cittadella has shown many times before that they are giant killers and they could definitely do this. So we're going to see. We're going to see what happens this Saturday, March 15th, 3 p.m. Eastern, not Eastern time, what am I saying? European time, and 10 a.m. Eastern time at the Stadio Pier Cesare Tomolato. The last game before the March international break, before we are off for some time, and then Cittadella returns for the last match of March against Cremonese, and that's where the real fun begins. So with that, I'm going to end it here. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. Please give us a follow, CittaCalcioUsa, on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Like I said, CittaCalcioUsa, that's where you can find us, as well as CittaCalcioUsa.com for insights, articles, news, all that stuff about Cittadella in English, CittaCalcioUsa.com, as well as go check out our feature for Destination Calcio, previewing this game against Sassuolo on the 15th. Cittadella looking for another upset, as they've done many times, not only this season, but in previous seasons in Serie B, looking to get unlikely results against Sassuolo. It would be a really heroic effort, so let's see what happens. But for me, thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. We will see you next week, and as always, Forza Citta. Thank you for listening to the CittaCalcioUsa show. If you liked it, please share and follow us on Instagram and Twitter at CittaCalcioUsa. See you next time, and remember, Forza Citta.